mention here, the last stream, we got through the tropical storms and we got through the wildfires a little bit. The wildfires we couldn't get through as much of as I wanted to. But even though we didn't get through it, it's fine. Didn't get through it as much, it's fine. We'll get through the COVID section now. Just what I really wanted to talk about earlier. Alright. Alright. First off, where is that thing again? It's here, isn't it? Dang it. I gotta wait for every single one of these pages to load. Just open up YouTube again. I'm not gonna like my own stream, but we'll just look at this. Yeah, no, we're not intelligent. Alright. Okay. We're back here. Let's look year over year. So what I was talking about earlier, before stream crash, was that this right here is SARS-2, which causes COVID inside wastewater. This is what I was trying to mention earlier, but my stream cut me off because it crashed and OBS was a massive pain. Currently, levels for 2023, at least in the United States, are around what they were in 2021 when Delta was going around. And Delta killed about, I believe, 200,000 people. Just about. 2022 was higher than this. And this was when they dropped mandates back in March. And then people were sick constantly year round. Also, welcome back, Inkling. Welcome back. So, things I'm talking about. This has gone up. The copies in the wastewater have gone up since May. They've gone up because we're getting into a surge now that's slowly building up. Not like in 2020, because in 2020 there was a lull this entire period until you got late into the year, and that was 710. But that 710 during like the peak of 2020, when most stuff was locked down, again, is at the same level that 2022 was for most of the year when they ended restrictions. So we've been at pandemic levels for like the past 3 years completely. We just dropped them like last year. If we're looking at wastewater, we're going back up to where we were back in March pretty quickly. We were declining for a bit there. We were declining until we hit about June. But then when think Barbie and Oppenheimer, that's the movie, released in July, and people have been going on holidays, it's starting to go back up, and schools are opening now, so it's going to go up even faster as time goes on. So this is an issue because I have to get to, it's not this one, it's this one, isn't it? I think it's this one. Yeah, it's this one. We have to get to this eventually. I have to get to this, unfortunately. This is the biggest thing I have to talk about. We're getting back into the phase of this. Getting back into it. So this is going up nationwide and monitoring by region. Everywhere is going up. Now, everywhere is going up. This is the variants that we have. It's been like a mess. There have been so many variants of this thing, it's crazy. We've had, this was Delta, and this petered out in like January of 2021. Not January. January of 2022, as Omicron, which is this one, took hold. Ever since then, we've had a bunch of variants. Like, let me draw that in a different color. Oh my god, why is she so loud? Ever since then, every single one of these has come after January and March of 2022. Every single one of these has come after. And these are all different. So all of these have different shapes that the virus itself is. So usually through most of 2022, people were always, the levels were high throughout that entire year because if we look at year over year, this was always high throughout most of the year, like it was in around like early 2020 levels. Not as high as the Omicron wave, which was this one. Around that level, because you always have like a new variant every single month. Like every single month, there's just a new variant that pops up, and then just people just keep getting sick again, and that keeps popping. And we're at this stage where one big variant gets replaced by the next one. Hey Philip, what's going on? Welcome to stream. So we've at the point where we've gone through multiple different variants. We've gone through BA2, BA2.12. These are all different because each one of these has different symptoms associated with it. Like the newest strain, which I believe is EG5, like this one. This one right here doesn't produce a fever anymore. Like this one doesn't produce a fever. And if you know anything about fevers, if you're in school, if you have a fever, they usually kick you out of school because that's usually a sign of infectious disease. So if you have this, you can't go to school. This variant doesn't produce this anymore. So you're going to have a lot more kids who come into school with COVID who don't have a fever, and that's going to get more people sick than before because there's no longer that fever thing stopping them from coming into school like it was before. Because you have all the, and then as we keep going, like this is slowly taking over, but it's not like there yet. We're just slowly getting there. It just started. It's slowly getting in the numbers, but it's not like the majority of cases. If you look down here. So as we keep going up, we just look at like the random counties throughout the country. Almost pretty much everywhere, no matter what state you're in, is going up. Pretty much every single county in the country. Like some places they're not counting anymore. But pretty much everywhere in the country. Even if I show all, it's going to take a lot longer. This might actually crash my computer again if I actually force all this to load. But yeah, pretty much everywhere it's going up. It's going up again, pretty much everywhere. So that's an issue because we don't have, let me just draw on like the whiteboard, get rid of this. We don't have the vaccines that came out in 2021, these things for 2021, not the newer ones that are treating for like CBB, the new stuff, because the new vaccines they come out in like fall, but they're always like 9 months behind what's currently happening. These ones aren't effective against new strains, like stuff like CBB. I think it's 115, I believe. And how do I say it? If I look at the graph, what's the official name? CBB 1.5, for example. Let's go back. These aren't 1.5. And let me click this. These up here were never designed to take on these variants. They weren't built for this. So any protection that you do get from the vaccines is lessened by this. Is lessened by this variant because it can overcome this more. It can escape it. It doesn't really have the same spike protein. This was used to treat the original strain Alpha and Delta. But after Omicron, it became less effective as the spike chain as the spike proteins the virus had on it. Let me actually fix this. Circled. The spike chain that the virus had on itself changed. Welcome back, Dawn. Thanks for being here. The spike protein on the virus changed. And it keeps changing. Every single variant just keeps changing. Keeps evolving and changing over time. So the immune system itself, right? Like your own immune system, let's just say like this is just like one of your immune cells, for example. Let's give it like a sword or something. Like one of these. Let's give it like a sword. Your immune system, even if you caught COVID before, will never be immune to one of these variants because this is effectively stealing your immunity. Because immunity is basically you get sick with something but you don't get it again. So if I got something like You get like the flu, for example. If you catch the flu from someone, for example, like it gets in, it comes out from the air, whisks away. It gets into like, let's just say this is your nose right here. Gets in. It's a terrible face. Gets into your nose. Let's just say that. It gets in, and then you get sick. Let's say you're sick for like 7 days. Against that particular flu strain, you won't be sick. You won't get to feel sick from it for the rest of your life, as long as as long as your immune system is strong enough and you have like T cells to actually like take care of it. As long as you have like your T cells and B cells actually there and doing their job, you probably won't get sick from this again, but you can still spread it to other people, right? Like, you probably won't get sick from whatever this is. You probably won't get sick from it again, but you can still give this, actually get another color here, you can still give this to someone else. You just won't feel sick from it. Same thing like when people from Europe visited the Americas for the first time, they didn't necessarily get sick from their own diseases because they were immune to them. But they gave it to other people who were not immune to them because they still carried the diseases. COVID doesn't really work like that. It doesn't follow the same formula, really. Because this is a disease that gets into your body, but once it's in there, it's basically attacking your cells. Like it's trying to break in. So think of COVID like a house robber in a way. Discussing stuff with Amani in QQ Kids chat, who said that the YouTuber estimated is mistreating his mods, which is proven true via evidence. Oh, that's sad. That shouldn't be happening, man. If you have more information, you could send it to me on like DMs. But that's sad, man. But yeah, think of like COVID as like a thing like a burglar, for example. Because this is basically how it's trying to get into your cells. Same way. Think of like your cell as a house. If you build it like that, this is how most viruses operate. It's like a virus in general. It doesn't have to be this. It doesn't have to be this in particular. Say you have like a door here, a window here. Say you have like an air vent up here somewhere. Air vent. Say it's air vent. You have a back door. Like a balcony back here. So you have this guy. Let's just say he's COVID or something. He's a burglar. He's trying to get inside your house. He has the key. The first option that he'll probably do, like a lot of viruses do, is that they have a thing on them that allows them to breach through the front door. So they usually have a spike inhibitor on them, or an ACE inhibitor like COVID does. So they open through the front door of the cell, so they can easily get into the cell, start replicating and do damage. So he can walk and tap, tap, tap. I'll eat later, mommy. Back to the whiteboard for a second here. It's a bit busy because it's a Sunday, but we'll try to steam through this. So, it's basically, it knows how to get through your front door. So because of that, it can get through your front door pretty easily. And then once it's in your cell, it can begin replicating. And usually for COVID specifically, it can merge your cells together. So like you have two cells that work together and do what they need to do. Maybe like they're like blood cells and they're transporting oxygen through your capillaries. This is just like the path they're taking. But they're transporting blood through your capillaries. Something that COVID can do is that it gets in your cells and it merges your cells together. So instead of having like two cells here, you get like one large cell with two of these inside of it, and the cell can't operate because it's not used to doing this type of stuff. The cell cannot operate at all because the cell doesn't have the shape it needs to do its function. So the cell itself gets inflamed and it dies because it can't perform its basic activities. That's this is one of the ways that a lot of symptoms, like for long COVID and stuff, happen, is because your cells themselves are literally getting damaged and contorted, so where they can't do their basic functions. That's why for like when COVID gets into your bloodstream, it gets everywhere in the body. That's why you get stuff like brain damage, brain fog. You get type 1 diabetes because your body cannot produce insulin because your cells that produce insulin are damaged or destroyed. Your immune system can't do stuff as COVID directly attacks your B cells over here and T cells over here. It attacks these, so your body not only gets an attack on the immune system, when these get attacked, these are responsible for knowing to fight off the infection again. So even though your B cells and T cells might learn about how to fight COVID, your immune system itself has been getting evaded by the virus. Because the virus doesn't get weaker when it mutates, it's trying to evade your immune system and your antibodies inside of it. So if it can't get through this front door because there's antibodies or something, like this, the front door's like locked off, sealed off. Next thing it's going to try and do is trying to get through the window. If it can't do that, it will try to get through the back door. If it can't do that, it will try to break into the vent. It will do anything it can to evolve to get into the cell, no matter what it has. Its just primary method is just getting into the front door of the cell, but it doesn't really matter. It can use the window, it can use the back door, it can use the vent, it can use anything. These are less optimal routes, but it can still get and do there. Your B cells and T cells, especially like your CD4s, like CD4 cells are responsible for stopping stuff like tumors, and they're especially good for stopping cancer. That's what they're good for. D cells are good for stopping tumors and cancer as they regulate your body and make sure that if you have these cells within your body, that they're stopped pretty quickly. So if you lose these, when your count of these goes down, you're more susceptible to getting cancer and stuff like that. Now, COVID also attacks V's. It depletes V's especially. So even if you get like a mild infection, you're still getting a lot of damage to this right here. So it's easier for you to develop cancer younger. So that's why even though you might not feel sick the younger you are, it's more impactful if you get COVID younger because you're going to get chronic disease earlier. Whether it be diabetes, heart problems, lung issues, brain damage. You can't think as straight because your brain is clogged. It's fogged up. You can't really remember things anymore. You get cancer, skin rashes because your body cannot easily regulate your skin as much. Like all this type of stuff, these chronic long-term diseases that you cannot get rid of, even like a bit like damages to your nerves and stuff like that, and makes it hard to walk, hard to speak, stuff like that. It's even the brain damage that it does to your brain. This can cause dementia. It's listed like, I believe, not here. It's not listed here. It's listed here. Like, if you look at the brain and nerves, brain fog, so it's harder for you to actually think. So thinking, concentrating, remembering. This could also be related to like why people like test scores are dropping. Not only because people are like at home and they haven't done the best supervision, but because the disease that they've caught over the past few years is literally damaging their brain. So it's harder for them to actually do stuff. It's harder for them to think. It's harder for them to actually concentrate. You get constant headaches as well. This is longer version of COVID. Long COVID, like there's two different phases of COVID. Let me actually draw them here. I'll draw them here for you. You have acute. So think of acute like you get a disease, like you get a sore throat in the morning, you get coughs, sneezes, whatever, stomach illness, because COVID causes that too, cramps, whatever. You get this type of stuff. This usually lasts 1 to 3 weeks. This is the stuff where you get sick, you get the terrible symptoms, and then they go away over time, kind of thing. This is what the majority of diseases do, all of them do in the beginning. You have the acute phase where you have 1 to 3 weeks where you feel symptoms, you feel sick, but it's not like it's going to be there forever. It will eventually go away as the virus or bacteria or whatever slowly gets attacked by your immune system and moves out. And then, depending on the type of disease, you'll become immune to it. Or if it's one like COVID or HIV or something similar, you don't become immune to it. Your immune system becomes weaker and become more susceptible to getting it again or whatever else you had. So in this phase, the symptoms won't last that long. But I would say another thing, though, it's kind of important. This can progress into chronic disease. And chronic disease can last a long time. And you try and draw that better. There. Chronic disease. This lasts a long time. This lasts, okay, I'll check DMs on my phone for you, so I don't have to check on PC. Chronic disease will last a long time. This is like stuff like asthma, diabetes, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's, stuff like that. Cancer, things around that nature. If you get a chronic disease, it doesn't spread to another person, but these diseases tend to be like more genetic in nature. So like you can get an acute infection from a virus or something like that, but the virus damages your own DNA, so you get these chronic diseases later in life, which you cannot get rid of. And these are very expensive and take a lot of time and work to actually address them. Like you need medications. I won't draw like that. You need like medications. You need tablets. You need drinks. You need needles. You need this type of stuff just to keep a chronic disease under control. Alright, thanks for sending the clips. I'll check it out. I'll check out those clips after stream. Thanks for sending them. But yeah, chronic disease is very expensive because you need to pay for medications. Not only have to do that, you have to regulate what's going into your body, to regulate what you eat for your specific condition, to regulate what you're drinking. You can't take multiple medications mixed together. Can't take that. You have limits on how much you can exercise on like a treadmill. Limits to what you can do. Some chronic diseases, like some things like for asthma, it's like swimming is really good for it. But for some chronic diseases, you can't do too much exercise because you get tired really quickly, or it hurts your condition, or you can't do a specific type of exercise. Specific weather doesn't like you as much. You can't be in extreme heat. Get me in extreme heat. Can't be in extreme cold either. Like this type, like chronic disease is very expensive. You mean like a wheelchair as well. Well, I can't draw a wheelchair as good, but you can mean a wheelchair as well. Like there's a lot of stuff that chronic disease makes just very expensive, depending on what country you live on. Like even in rich countries, right? Like this is very expensive. This can cost hundreds of billions of dollars to maintain a year, depending on how many disabled people or people with chronic diseases you have in your country. This is very expensive. But you have to have the money for the medication, the foods, the services, the climate control, the hospitals, all that to maintain it. As well as you have to remember these people have chronic diseases, so they can't work as much. So you can't work these people 12, 16, 8 hours, 8, 12, 16 hours a day. You can only work them like 4 hours, 2 hours, 3 hours. Can't work them consistently. Can't work them as many days. So you have employed people who are working with these conditions who can't work as much. So you can't get as much produced. So, because you can't get as much produced, prices and other stuff have to go up because you have to pay for not only their own treatment, but you have to also factor in there's less stuff that can actually be sold to people. So prices have to go up. And with more people who have these conditions, you're going to have more people who need these medications. The price is going to continue to go up on these. The more and more people are disabled. For a disease like COVID, or even like if we do like HIV/AIDS, HIV is an autoimmune disease. It weakens your immune system, but it progresses to AIDS later in about 12 years. HIV transitions to AIDS in 12 years, about 12, 15 years. Because this was a problem mainly in the 80s. So if I go to this life expectancy thing, like over here, that's why in like Africa, for example, if we shorten like this timeline to around, shorten it to 1950, that's why in Africa, if you look at this life expectancy chart, dude, for most of the 80s, life expectancy did not go up very much because of HIV. This is why it didn't increase until later. HIV treatments came out, and then life expectancy rose until 2019, before it's obviously gone down over recent years. So you can see, like on a life expectancy chart, you can see when diseases usually occur in an area. You can see this, like clear as day. I gotta get this all together though. Split by region. Like as you can see, in like Asia, like during the 1950s, I believe this is when they had a influenza epidemic over there, and that dropped life expectancy at birth by about, if I'm looking at this, dropped it from 47 years to 41 years in a span of only 2 years, and then it went back up to where it was beforehand and continued to rise. Like you can tell where disease outbreaks are on this map by disease outbreaks, economic collapses, based on life expectancy chart. And something to note about life expectancy is that life expectancy doesn't go down if old people die. So let me put this back. No, we'll keep this here. So we might open up another one of these. I'm not sure, but we'll clear this out for now, and then we'll come back to it. Life expectancy right here. This goes down not when people who are around life expectancy age die. So let's say the life expectancy in your country is 77 years old. Pretty standard for like a rich country. Standard for like the United States. In Europe, in European countries, it's higher. It's around 80. It's 80 something or higher. 84, 85, give or take, depending on what country you live in. So let's say your average life expectancy is 80, 77, right here. So let's say that you have a person a large amount of people who are in their 70s dying. Maybe it's because you have like a really bad flu season that year, or you have a chronic disease outbreak. They're getting chronic diseases from like food or decisions that they made in their younger lives. Like this will not decrease this number very much. It might decrease it slightly, but a large amount of people in this age group dying will not affect this number. Even in the 60s, this number will not go down very much. However, if you have people in their 50s, their 40s, their 30s, that's a little bit hard to read. Their 30s, 20s, and so on. We'll have teens over here, 10s, and we have the zeros. Zeros goes from 0 to 9. If you have a lot of people dying or getting sick from disease in these like areas, especially like 40 and below, right here, life expectancy goes down. This is what really makes life expectancy tank. It's younger people dying. This is what makes it tank. So, if you take this and you translate to this map, life expectancy, this hasn't been updated. They have to update it to 2022 and 23. 23, not really, but they have to get the 2022 data here. They'll get it in here eventually. But if we shorten down the time scale, we'll keep, oh, no, we'll keep it. If we look at the time scale, at 2019, the world's life expectancy was 72 years old, right? It was 72 years old. If we look at it, what it would have been in 2021, it's decreased by a full almost 2 years. So this is big because we haven't seen something like this, at least on a global scale, in quite a bit of time. Like, yes, there's been HIV, but HIV didn't do a large decline like COVID has in population, like globally. It hasn't done that. I gotta fix this graph. Yeah, I gotta fix this graph. All right. But seriously, if we look at it from, let's split by region. I don't want to do that. Let's split it by region. Even in like Asia, where life expectancy tanked by 6 or 7 years, it tanked for like 2 years due to the flu. Yes, but then quickly afterward, the life expectancy started going back up. Right? Ever since like 2020, even in 2021, and even now, excess deaths are still high. They have not really gone down too much. They're still higher than what they were before in 2019 prior. They're still higher. So that means, really, if we go back to this system, people here are still dying at a good rate due to COVID. They're still dying at a good rate, even if they don't count deaths anymore. If we look at excess deaths and life expectancy, they're still dying at a good rate down here. Maybe not from like the acute infection itself. Like if we go back, like if we go like way back, they might not necessarily be dying from the acute infection. They're probably not dying from this. They're most likely not dying from this. But the issue is COVID and like stuff like HIV and AIDS turns people from this into this. And those so-called vulnerable people who have disabilities and like comorbidities that make them more susceptible to dying from stuff like this. The issue is that these diseases turn people who are normally healthy into people who are vulnerable. And the issue with that is that it turns people who are healthy into vulnerable people, and in turn, vulnerable people turn into dead people. Not always dead people, but chronic disease will slowly kill them over time. So therefore, to stop like increased death rates and chronic disease in the future from people getting sick from like these diseases, the way to stop this from happening, more chronic disease, which is happening now, with increased disability rates and stuff like that, the way to stop this and eventually stop die-offs later is okay. I'm gonna go to sleep. I'm gonna go get my schedule right again. Good night, Storm. Good night, Don. Thanks for being here. You can always watch the stream later. I'll send like the rest of it tomorrow. But yeah, you have this here. To stop this in deaths from happening, this has to be prevented. Like the acute, like to stop, oh my god, to stop this from happening and the amount of so large cost that comes from this has to be stopped. This has to be stopped. So, in the case of this, things that can be done is like wearing a mask or something, but it depends what you're wearing. If you're wearing like a cloth or surgical, and this is in addition to sanitization, by the way, you can't just wear these and not sanitize stuff. These are personal things you can do. On the left, on the right, I'll draw a line here. On the right is community stuff /gov. All right. So personal. So on this side, if you like have a mask, you wouldn't use these. These do not work against the current strains of COVID because they're so infective, and these don't latch onto your face really. These are also uncomfortable, so if you want comfortability, you don't wear these at all. You'd wear something like an N95 or better, but this is the low end. You can go up from this to N99. You can run a flow mask, a 3M Aura. I have a few links to them as well. I'll shut them off. 3M Aura, a 3M mask, a P90, a P100. Stuff like this is really going to stop. Is really going to stop respiratory viruses and smoke. This is also effective against wildfires from getting into the area where you're breathing. And these especially, these masks down here are comfortable. These can actually fit to your face and you'll be pretty fine. You won't feel any real issues. But you have to make sure it actually fits to your face. These are comfortable and will keep out the smoke and viruses from the air that you're breathing. Now, if you want clean air added to this, you might also get like a respirator that you can put, like a breathable respirator that you can put on like your arm or something, and then you attach like a tube to it, and then you put it into your mask. So you get clean air that flows into the respirator and goes directly into your mask, and then you get that air from the respirator takes the air out your mask and cleans it, and then sends it out. So you get clean air coming in and clean air coming out. So this is a personal thing you can do. This stops you from getting sick, but also prevents if you are sick from infecting other people because your droplets will not be coming out from here. They can't go out and infect other people and get into other people's like eyes, nose, and mouth kind of thing. So this is most effective as a personal thing as you can do. You also need to make sure that I'll erase these actually. I'll erase it so it's not so hard. There we go. Flow mask. This takes a long time to do, but we're fine. We'll just erase these and we're good. Alright, there we go. It should not take too long. And I think we have everything pretty much done. So, one, you would, as I said before, mask. That looks terrible. Mask N95 plus for that. That's what you do for masking. Also make sure you sanitize stuff. This is what I will also do. You sanitize stuff using like wipes. Like if you go to school, for example, you wipe down your desk. You have a desk here. It's not the best picture, but we'll draw like that. You sanitize your desk. You sanitize your desk when you walk in. So when you walk in with this stuff on, you use a wipe. You sanitize your desk. Make sure it's clean. If you see like a lot of black, keep going. If the wipe is black, then throw it out and then use another one. Keep cleaning, and then sit down and do what you have to do for schoolwork, whatever you have to do. Listen to the teacher. Keep stuff sanitized. Like, don't touch too much stuff, but the stuff that you do have to touch, make sure you're sanitizing it because you don't know who used it before you, kind of thing. So I always keep sanitizing stuff. Another thing I would do is I would probably eat outdoors. This is most important really. Do as much stuff as you can outdoors if possible. Like if you can eat, do it outdoors. Do it outdoors with the wind blowing, with the wind blowing. So the way you should be doing it is if the wind should be blowing against your back, so air is moving away from you. That's how it should be. So air is not moving directly into your face; it's moving from behind you forward, and it's cleaning out your air that way. So do as much eating as you can outdoors. Just like a general thing for not getting sick. Do activities outdoors. Do sports, whatever outdoors. If it's like a cold rain, I would try and stay inside. Like open up a window, yes, but don't go outside, as that's also bad because you don't want to get hypothermia. But if it's snowing outside, like lightly, you can also still go outside. Only exception here is if it's cold rain. It's cold rain, or it's like frostbite, like weather. Don't go outside. Is what I would say. Don't go outside. And like one last thing, if you're like doing like a personal thing possibly is that if you were around someone who's sick, just like stay home. Just like stay home. That's another thing you can do. Well, I'm not gonna list it here. You can do stay home. Or something else you can also do is try and get stuff delivered to you online instead of actually going to the place yourself. If you get stuff delivered online, that's really good because not only do you not have to do it yourself, get someone else to do it for you, and when you get that done, someone else is doing it for you can get specifically what you want and not get sucked into the store for hours on end. All right, last government. This for things they can do. You can advocate for mandates, but the biggest thing they could possibly do is HEPA filters installed in buildings. This is the biggest thing they can do. If you have like a HEPA filter installed in buildings and have like air quality regulations inside buildings to make sure air is well ventilated inside airplanes, cruise ships, whatever. If you have that, if you have that, this dramatically reduces the chance of any disease that's in the air, and that makes sure that you can still do these things, right? But these are only effective for you and like people around you, directly around you. This would affect everyone. Will clean out the air for everybody, so everyone gets sick less because of this. Also, another thing that you could do, no, another thing would be like, either more vaccines or like more medication for people, plus cheaper medication. That's another thing. If medication was actually made cheaper for these diseases that people got, then people can get cured quicker, and that would be fine. Also, remote work. There's an option for remote work that's available from a community or government standpoint, advocate for stuff like this because this allows you to work from home. You're more efficient. You'll be happier. You won't have to do like a strong commute into work, for example. You won't have to do that. Because if you're not commuting to work, you won't have the stress of traffic. You won't have the stress of you won't have the anger coming in from the traffic persisting to your daily work, and you won't have like the busy chaoticness of the office. And plus, you're home. You can take care of yourself. You can do the things you need to do. You can be with the family, stuff like that. Like, if you can push for all three of these things, these would be nice. Cheaper medicine, cheaper med. So cheaper medicine, HEPA filters, vaccines, cheaper medicine, remote work. These are all three things that you can get like the government or communities to do, advocate for, and this will help everybody get sick less and have just like a better life in general, as I would say. So if you know, so for something about code for incubation periods, for the current strains, if you get exposed on, let's say you got exposed on Saturday, that's terrible. Let's make it Tuesday. Say you got exposed on Tuesday because you walked into the room because COVID stays in the air like smoke. That's why I said they're similar because they both stay in the air for long periods of time and they're hard to get out. Okay, so you get exposed on Tuesday. Most likely, since you're going to be asymptomatic on Wednesday, you'll be spreading it more that day. But you'll feel symptoms on either Friday, most likely, or Saturday. These are the days you're most likely going to feel symptoms. For the incubation period, you'll feel symptoms 3 days after initial infection, after infection, or reinfection, depending on what it is. But most people now have reinfections. So the damage of like COVID is continuing compounding them. So you go from Tuesday to Friday to Saturday, 3 days after infection. So usually you'll show symptoms 3 days after infection, and then that's when you know to isolate. So that's why I say even if someone appears unsick, 50% of infections, at least with COVID, are asymptomatic. So you won't know that they're sick because they won't show any symptoms. So you keep like the things that I mentioned earlier constant because you don't know. Even if your own family, you don't know. So keep this in mind. Keep this in mind, and you take this into precaution. If you feel like you've been exposed, check after 3 days. If after like at least like 5 days or six, like after like 5 days or like closer to a week, you don't feel anything after you initially been exposed, then it's probably not COVID, the new strains at least. But if you get something in 3 days, I would still isolate, no matter if you're sick or not. No matter if you're sick with COVID or not, I would still isolate, as you don't want to give that on to someone else, as you don't know how long that chain from you, this person right here, will go to maybe your sister, your mom, whatever, and then that continues the chain onward. You don't know how long that goes, so you want to stop it with you. You end the chain here to stop the entire chain everywhere else from continuing. That's what you want to do. So we'll keep that going. And also, another thing, if you're getting infected with COVID, there's always a 10% chance. Well, the lowest I've seen is a 5% chance. But we'll take the round of 5 to 25% chance for every infection that you'll get long COVID. And this applies for all ages. So if you don't want long COVID or any of the chronic diseases that come with it, the best thing you can do is to avoid COVID. The best way to avoid this is to avoid this. If you can avoid this by doing the things I tell you, do the things I mentioned earlier, you won't get these things later. You probably won't get these things later. Because you can't get long COVID without having COVID originally. And even if you don't feel any symptoms or it feels mild, you're still probably going to get long COVID no matter what. And even if you have like the vaccine, right? The vaccine reduces severe infections and death, but it doesn't reduce this. Like you can have this vaccine, the COVID vaccines from like 2 years ago, or even the current ones, but they don't reduce this. These vaccines over here do not reduce this long COVID. They only reduce the severe infections in that acute phase that you get when you normally feel sick. They don't reduce this at all. They don't reduce it. So the most important thing you can do to avoid long COVID is to avoid getting sick with COVID in the first place. So that means masking, sanitizing, eating outdoors, stuff like that. Not going on unnecessary trips. Like you can go to like a concert or something, but just be aware of the risk that you're taking. That if you do go there, that there's a high chance that someone there has a disease, and since the disease hangs like smoke in the air, they don't have to be next to you to get you infected. So I would take stuff like this. I will find stuff like this, full mask, and I'll find this right here. I'll find this. These are really comfortable, especially for like children. And COVID also changes the immune system, because this attacks B cells and T cells, because these remember infections. Because COVID attacks these and also destroys them. If you get sick with COVID, most likely you'll get sick with other diseases as well just after it, and you'll keep getting sick a while, and then you'll stop getting sick for a little bit. But if you get COVID again, then you just repeat the cycle, and that's not good for you. Especially if since you know that it causes chronic disease, You don't want this. You want to protect yourself from this at all costs, even if it's just the flu from like acuteness. You want to keep yourself away from this at all costs. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you feel mild or not. Protect yourself from it. Even from like other diseases, you don't want to be sick. If you just do the stuff, do like these tips here. If I don't like earlier, if I go back, do tips from like earlier, you will get sick less often anyway. So you'll feel fine. You can actually do the things you want to do. You won't be sick. You won't be miserable at home during the holidays. You can do stuff you want, which is really good because if you're not sick, then your people around you won't get sick. You guys get to do more stuff. Always have to be precautious, but you won't get sick as often, which is important. Should okay. What I would just say, just try and not get COVID. Try not to get it using the stuff I told you earlier. No, it does also produce antibodies. I'll link this study eventually. You guys can search it up here. This study does lead to antibodies because I believe there's only a specific COVID antibody that attacks it directly, like RS2 is directly good against COVID itself. But COVID makes your body produce other antibodies that aren't good at really stopping the disease, so that prolongs the infection inside your body to make it go longer. Also, hey MGB, what's going on? Welcome to stream. Also, bye. I saw your messages, by the way, so you can't really delete them. I saw them. Caught them just in time. It's a large, complex scientific study. I'll try and read through more of these because I think this is important. So I'll be able to refer these to you guys later down in the future. Before I end it, I'll talk about this. We have this is another. They say it's another variant of Omicron, but this one has 30 plus mutations going with it. So we have to watch this one because it has a bunch of mutations. So just like I mentioned earlier, this one, just like other COVID variants, this one's a different spike shape. It's just going to infect people differently. It's going to infect more people than before. Yeah, so even if you had some immunity, like previous COVID variants, which there is no immunity to it, you just have slight barrier protection for about 90 months because for 90 days. Because even after like a case of like 90 days or something, you can still get COVID. Like if you got COVID like 90 days ago, you can still get it now. It doesn't matter like how long it's been. It's not like within after 90 days you can get it. No, it's just even within 90 days you can also get it as well and get reinfected with it. And each time you get reinfected, you keep rolling this 10%, this 5 to 10, 25% dice of long COVID, which leads to disability every time. You keep rolling this every time you get infected. So you want to roll this as low as possible. You don't want to keep rolling this. So you got to stop it there. I know there's a social cost of wearing masks because people don't really like when you wear it. They say the pandemic is over or something like that. But your personal health comes first over other people's feelings. And if someone does ask, you can tell them. If they argue in bad faith, you can just leave them alone and just say no. So it's very under monitoring for now. It's already in 3 places, but since air travel allows diseases to get pretty much everywhere in the world at any time, it doesn't really matter if you see like one wave variant in like one part of the world because it's pretty much everywhere by the time people notice it. Yeah, it's thought to be evolved from much earlier from Omicron. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, 30 more mutations and more immune invasive. Invasive. So, because of that, it's going to be able to infect people easier and do stuff. It's going to be an invaded immune system. It can affect people easier, and that could also lead to more long COVID as it's able to get around your immune system and get to your cells faster than it could before. And we keep these names just because it's easier for people to keep track of them instead of using like the number system. Because it has a lot of mutations between these two. So we'll see what happens out of that. This could be very concerning in the next few months as people go back to school. So this is a warning. I would just say mask up, sanitize, and all that other stuff now. Because probably you're gonna see a lot more people are gonna be sick again like during the winter time, fall and into winter. You're gonna have a lot of people out of school, so I just keep that in mind. I hope you guys enjoyed this. The stream was pretty important, so I try to make it the best I possibly could for people because this was an important thing for me. So I hope you guys learned something from it. All right, I'm gonna log off. I'll do another one of these next week, and yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow with like another video, probably some more topical updates and like some more of this stuff. But we'll try and keep on top of this stuff later. So I hope you guys enjoyed. No, not everyone likes this stuff, but it's important, so I want to talk about it. All right.